these young people.
I see a few older ones too.
Yes.
Are y'all here from the temple?
Yes. Wonderful. Well, welcome. We are the Eichenbaums. I'm Helen Lockwood Eichenbaum, and you'll meet Jody Lockwood in just a second. He's my nephew, my brother Jean's son.
And I'm E. Charles Eichenbaum, but I go by Charles.
Now, darling, where should we start?
At the beginning, of course. But first, our motto: work hard and play hard, love life and all that it holds, and do good and be a blessing. We have been very blessed in our lives, and we thank God every day for those blessings.
What we have never done, however, is brag about them. You see, we're a little uncomfortable talking about ourselves, so let's just talk about each other.
Less bragging that way.
Yes. Now, our love story began when the hunter spotted his prey.
We both loved to hunt. The first time I saw Helen, she was singing in the Hot Springs Temple Choir. I fell hard for her beauty and her talent. What a voice. She graduated salutatorian from her class and then went to Northwestern and then Juilliard to study opera. That's where a lot of famous opera singers train, and famous actors like Robin Williams and Jessica Chastain. Juilliard offered her 5 fellowships. One would have been plenty, but they offered her 5.
Charles, you're embarrassing me. And I didn't take all 5 fellowships.
Indeed. You took all but one and became a renowned mezzo-soprano opera singer performing primarily in New York.
Well, what sort of relationship would we have had if you hadn't let me pursue my dream of becoming an opera singer? Meanwhile, you graduated high school at 15 years old from Little Rock High as valedictorian. And Harvard even offered you a scholarship, but you couldn't take it because you had to work, which you did by writing a sports column for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. You were even friendly with Joe Pulitzer Jr. of the famous newspaper family.
Joe and I talked duck hunting. He'd go to Stuttgart a good bit, and he had gone to Harvard, so we'd talk about that.
You did love writing that sports column.
I was always a sports fan, and was fortunate that you loved to play golf, duck hunt, and fish. You were way ahead of your time, my dear. Both Helen and I were most concerned with helping other people. We'd each been raised to help not only the Jewish community, but other people in need as well.
You know, one of my favorite performances was singing with the Arkansas Symphony. It was a benefit to help raise money for the very poor children during the Great Depression.
The Depression happened in 1929 after the stock market crashed. Respectable, dignified people sold apples in the street to feed their family. Doctors continued to practice, but their bills were meaningless because no one had any money, and the same was true for lawyers.
Charles had founded his law firm in 1928, just before the crash, and he became the first tax attorney in Arkansas. In his early days of law, in trial work and as a circuit judge, he would travel to the far corners of Arkansas, sometimes even riding horseback through unpassable roads. There was one judge, a presiding judge, who said to his jury, "Have mercy and pity on this stranger in our midst."
Helen taught voice lessons. Our daughter Peggy remembers having to tiptoe through the house when students were there. Helen was also a member of the Sisterhood and the National Council of Jewish Women. My mother was in charge of an 8-state region for that organization. I was impressed to find out that she was a member of 100 Women of Arkansas, along with a woman named Hillary something or other.
Clinton, silly. And she may well become our first woman president. It's very exciting for our country. And you know, you also spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. You know, you would travel there up to 3 days a week trying cases for the U.S. Supreme Court. You worked closely with Representative Wilbur Mills and Senator William Fulbright.
2 powerful and well-respected members of the House and Senate, respectively.
Senator Fulbright once even said, "I have the greatest respect for Charles Eichenbaum. He has a very broad understanding of government." Oh, and there was that one time that Truman summoned you to Washington, D.C. to try a case.
I was glad that the outcome was successful. You know, I wasn't always lucky. One time I sustained serious hearing loss while duck hunting, so naturally I had to start wearing a hearing aid, which I didn't mind, but my secretary did when I forgot to turn it on. And I didn't always hear what my wife told me to do, which had its virtues.
Still, as proud as I am of the exemplary life that he has lived, and how you have helped me pursue all the causes that I am most passionate about, still, as one's life is ending, it's very important to leave a good legacy, which you scholarships, yearly scholarships at UALR Law School that you've provided.
Isn't that what we believe Judaism has taught us to do? Do good and be a blessing. It's not so complicated.
And you can imagine how thrilled and proud we were to hear that our daughter, Peggy, and her husband, L.R. Jelinek, had donated, in honor of us, the Mishkan Hanefesh prayer books, those gold and silver High Holy Day ones, to the temple. Peggy and L.R. are members of the Temple Israel in Memphis, and when they loved the Mishkan Hanefesh, they called Rabbi Block to see if we were using it yet.
And little did they know that the Temple Ritual Committee had met the night before to approve the Mishkan Hanefesh. Rabbi Block called this a sacred coincidence. Thank you, Peggy and LR, for your wonderful contribution, and it seems fitting, considering that Helen used to chant Kol Nidre on Yom Kippur.
And on that note, Charles, I think we've kept you long enough. Thank you so much for coming. It was nice to meet you.